and I'm really pleased to join you today to mark the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. And that solidarity, of course, has never been more needed. Israel has unleashed horror upon horror on the people of Gaza. We are now all too grimly familiar with the facts and the stats. More than 15,000 Palestinians killed, including roughly 5,500 children, with a child being killed every 10 minutes while the bombardment raged on. That's 1.7 million Palestinians displaced from their homes, and around 60% of the housing stock damaged or destroyed. When we hear the numbers of Palestinians who have been slaughtered, when we read the horrifying statistics, we must remember that there is a name, there were hopes, there were dreams, lives just as valuable, just as important as yours or mine. And it's shocking that this needs to be said, but we've seen this from the actions of our political leaders. It clearly needs saying that Palestinian lives matter just as much as everyone else's. Israel's total siege and unrelenting bombing killed an estimated 1 in every 200 people in the enclave. Hospitals, ambulances, refugee camps, and schools have all been targeted. Premature babies in incubators died as a result of hospitals running out of fuel. In the illegally occupied West Bank, where Hamas is not in power, over 200 Palestinians have been killed by the Israeli army or by armed settlers, and that violence is escalating. So let's be in no doubt that what we have witnessed in the 6 weeks of Israel's bombardment are clear violations of international law and blatant war crimes. The United Nations Secretary General and human rights organizations have said as much, and we shouldn't be afraid of saying so either. And what's really shocking is that Israeli officials have been very open about their intentions. Right at the beginning of the assault, an Israeli military spokesperson said that the emphasis in bombing was, and I quote, damage, not accuracy. A former head of the National Security Council in Israel said, and I quote, the aim was to make Gaza a place where no human being can exist. And that there was also an Israeli government minister who said that the war would be Gaza's Nakba, a reference to the 1948 catastrophe where hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were forcibly expelled from their homelands and never allowed to return. Yet, in spite of these terrifying, frank, open declarations of inhumanity, our political leaders have been unequivocal in their support for Israel's actions, giving a green light to Israel's slaughter of Palestinians and made us, the British people, complicit in these crimes. That is why, with colleagues on this call, I've been doing everything that I can to push the government to use its influence to end this carnage. From marching with hundreds of thousands of people in the streets of London, with actions taking place in every part of the UK, in Wales, in Scotland, everywhere, demanding our leaders listen to the people of this country, where we've already seen polls show an overwhelmingly the large majority of people back a ceasefire. And we've also put down an amendment in the House of Commons calling for a ceasefire. I was devastated, like my colleagues on the call, that in the vote that we had 2 weeks ago, not enough MPs supported that call. And my view on this is clear. In that vote, without a shadow of a doubt, I believe our party should have voted for an immediate ceasefire and not whipped us to abstain on that vote. But like colleagues, I was not going to abstain. That was never going to happen. And of course, I voted for a ceasefire. And as I said at the time, there is nothing humanitarian about a humanitarian pause, which allows children to eat a little today, only to bomb them tomorrow. The only humanitarian way forward is a permanent ceasefire and an end to the slaughter. And that call is backed by the Scottish Parliament, by the Welsh Parliament, by the mayors of London, Greater Manchester, and West Yorkshire, by the French, Spanish, Irish, and Portuguese governments, amongst many, many others, and the United Nations Secretary General and Assembly, and also everyone from the Pope to charities like Islamic Relief. The truce that is currently in place is certainly very welcome, but we know it is not enough. It has brought respite to the people of Gaza, but 6 days isn't enough time to bury the dead. It's not enough time to mourn loved ones who have been lost to the violence or to rebuild homes and neighborhoods that have been destroyed. If the truce does come to an end and Israel's assaults continue, we've seen Israeli leaders calling for that to happen, and we know that the death toll will rise, and the truce will have just been a pause in the slaughter, not an end to it. So I'm very clear, the truce that is still ongoing must be the beginning of a permanent ceasefire and the first step towards a just and lasting peace. And I'm just going to end with this. From London to Lahore, Newcastle to New York, Cairo to Kerala, across the world, we have seen a beautiful movement rise up in solidarity with the Palestinian people. In our thousands, in our millions, we have collectively demanded a ceasefire, but we can't stop there. We have to keep organizing, we have to keep marching, we have to keep speaking up until the siege on Gaza is lifted, until the occupation ends, until Palestine is free. Thank you, and solidarity.